There have been many adventures between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Miyamoto Usagi. The last time I spoke about their crossovers, I mentioned that Miyamoto Usagi was a constant across most of the comic book versions of the Turtles. Well, this year, the two properties crossed paths again, and the place of this story in Miyamoto's timeline is quite peculiar. Today's focus is on the TMNT and Usagi Yojimbo miniseries called Wherewhen. Wherewhen, spanning 5 issues, was brought to life by IDW Publishing in collaboration with Dogu Publishing and Paramount Consumer Products. The brilliant mind of Sten Sakai crafted this narrative about half a decade ago, following their last crossover, the story known as Namazu. The real charm of this storyline lies in its placement within the Usagi Yojimbo timeline. It happens 20 years in the future of the book, and it works as a pseudo-prequel to another great Usagi Yojimbo story known as Senso. Senso itself is like a potential curtain call to the Usagi Yojimbo journey. Now, I don't want to spoil the end of that story, so I recommend you read it until the very last panel. I can only say that it's a beautiful story. Since that epic story only lasted 6 issues, Stan had to edit out characters from it. All those edits likely were one of the reasons this story took place just before Senso, as characters like the blind swords pig and Kitsune finally finished their decades-long character arcs. Our tale began just before the climatic showdown between Lord Noriyuki and the Shadow Lord Hikiji. This was 20 years beyond where we left off in the Usagi Yojimbo series. By then, Lord Noriyuki had matured, with Miyamoto Usagi serving as his general. He fought alongside Yukichi, Miyamoto's cousin, and Jotaro, Miyamoto's secret son. As they prepared to clash with Hikiji's forces, a desperate villager approached Miyamoto, pleading for assistance against a fearsome kappa. This creature had tormented his village, dragging folks to a watery doom. Despite the weight of his duty to the shogun to confront Lord Hikiji, Miyamoto persuaded Noriyuki to let him, Tomoe, Jotaro, and Yukichi address the kappa threat. Around this time, we discovered how the lives of these characters have changed. Tomoe had no choice but to marry Kubo. It was a political marriage to guarantee peace between the two clans. Gennosuke, on the other hand, happily married Kitsune. Together, Miyamoto and Tomoe confronted and defeated the kappa, preserving its hand as evidence of their triumph. This very hand later found its way to a modern-day Tokyo museum. And speaking of the present day, in contemporary New York, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were locked in battle against Dr. Wherewhen, a malicious cyborg scientist from the future. This fiend wanted to rewrite history, asserting dominion over his own timeline. Wherewhen, tired of losing to the Turtles, decided to go even further back in time. The Turtles tried to prevent him from making the jump by jamming his time chamber, but the evil scientist had a wrist device that allowed him to escape. After finding the coordinates, Donatello tried to figure out how to use the time chamber. Once inside, the Turtles appeared in feudal Japan, where Yukichi and Jotaro confused them for the kappa. Lucky for them, Miyamoto and Tomoe arrived in time to stop the fight. This was when the Turtles found out that 20 years had passed since their last encounter with Miyamoto. The Turtles explained the reason why they traveled to the past, and while Miyamoto couldn't join them in their quest, he offered to help them in any way they could. But there was a twist. The Turtles arrived 25 years too late, and Dr. Wherewhen had plenty of time to develop the technology necessary to overthrow the shogun. A little concerned, Wherewhen summoned the Mogura ninja clan to fight the Turtles and Noriyuki's army. And just in case the anthropomorphic mole ninjas failed, he would release his army of samurais. The Turtles and Miyamoto, rejoining the ranks, encountered Dr. Takenoko, a crucial figure from the Senso series. Inspired by the Turtles' design, he conceptualized a turtle tank, or as he called it, Kameyama, a machine vital for events in the future story. Noriyuki refused to make a detour from the shogun's order, but did promise to give them the resources they needed. It was then that they were attacked by the Mogura ninja. During this fight, it became clear that the ninja were also after Noriyuki. The army tried to protect him, and during the battle, Kitsune died, breaking Gennosuke's heart. To get vital information about the attack, Shizu paid only the ninja survivor to get information from him. That was when they discovered that they were employed by Lord Dokoitsu in his attempts to overthrow the shogun. Leo and Mikey immediately realized that Dokoitsu translated into Wherewhen in English. Knowing Dokoitsu was in a stronghold not too far away, Miyamoto proposed to lead a group of scouts to investigate. Shizu, Jotaro, Tomoe, and Yukichi offered to join him, but Lord Noriyuki prohibited Tomoe from leaving his side, as he couldn't send so many seasoned warriors on a reconnaissance mission. Near the stronghold, tragedy struck when the blind swordspig and his daughter Ichiko encountered the robotic samurais. The aftermath saw the swordspig dead and Ichiko blinded. The turtles and samurai rabbits eventually entered the forest, only to find themselves fighting against some killer giant mechanized ants. The turtles stopped them, and that was when Donatello discovered that the energy source came from the solar panels at Dokoitsu's stronghold. The second attack was from a giant mechanical dragon that Shizu destroyed with one of her grenades. But as they neared the fortress, robotic sentinels were omnipresent, while a large faction targeted Lord Noriyuki. Knowing that the only way to stop the robot army was by stopping the stream of wireless energy, Yukichi used his sword to destroy the main controller. Unfortunately, this was too much for the poor rabbit, who died in Miyamoto's arms. With his army now frozen and powerless, Dr. Wherewhen had one last option: to leave the turtles in the past and return to the future, where he now had no opposition. Leonardo then cut his arm, knowing that the doctor's wristband was essential to return to their time. Without his wristband, Dr. Wherewhen would forever be trapped in the time stream. Knowing the wristband had its own energy source, the turtles decided to use it before its batteries depleted. After the turtles' departure, Usagi and Jotaro returned to the camp and resumed their mission to defeat the Shadow Lord Hikiji. In terms of Usagi Yojimbo continuity, this story could work as a prequel to Senso, but without going into spoiler territory, that story's events may have been greatly exaggerated by an unreliable narrator. Given that there is no narrator in Wherewhen, we can deduce that at the end of the Usagi Yojimbo saga, there was a final confrontation with Lord Hikiji 20 years into the future. It just may or may not have gone in the way narrated in Senso. As for the turtles' timeline, these are the same turtles from Namazu, but they may be from a spin-off universe of the IDW continuity. However, I feel like I should point out that there's no way for the turtles to travel back to the past of their timeline and end up in Miyamoto Usagi's universe of anthropomorphic animals. Whether this was an imaginary story or not, the reality is that we got one of the best TMNT and Usagi Yojimbo crossovers. It is a story with high stakes and consequences, something that isn't always the case when different properties cross paths. If you enjoyed this story, you should definitely read Senso. What do you think? Should I also cover Senso in this channel? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.